Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are just after the closing bell on Thursday, October 14th. We're going to take a look at SoFi. Really exciting day for me for SoFi today. So we have up 3.7%. Definitely going to be volume over 33.5 million because I'm sure that those numbers are still coming in, and right now it's just shy of 33.5 million. So pretty solid volume. Yesterday was 47, or sorry, yesterday was 31.3 on the red day. So now we have up, decent increase in volume for a green day. It probably be up, like what, 10% or something. And so those are all the good signs that we want. Additionally, this candle here, I don't care so much that it kind of looks like a hammer because it's not sort of at the bottom of a trend line, but it's really nice to see that obviously there's strong soaking up of the cells that are entering the market. Those are getting bought up really, really quickly. Hence, the body is so tiny on the upside and the wick is stretching down. Also, we're starting to interact with this 1993 level, which I said yesterday, I don't think is a super strong level. Yesterday or the day before, whatever day we charted it. It's dotted because I don't think it's as strong as 1904 or 2058. But it could be a little bit of a friction spot. so that's why I thought it was worth looking at. And the most exciting element of all of this, to me, is that it's really established now what we were talking about yesterday. It's like in the middle of this up channel, which I've been saying, it gives us the escalator up. This is the expedited route to getting SoFi back, let's just say, into the 20s. And so now we have, and it also provides us additional areas of support, right? So if we do have some pullbacks, which at some point we will, I don't know when, but 1904 would give us that most immediate supports. If it loses 1904, now the next level is not going to be 1847. The next level is going to be, what does it do with the bottom bound of this channel? Because remember, this channel is strong because, well, especially this bottom bound is strong because it was the beginning of this uptrend that was then interrupted by the huge gap down reaction to the earnings. So it was what was establishing back here after it was trying to build this as a base or as a floor to push off of in July. And then when it gapped down, that's also where it hit resistance. So it immediately flipped this from support to resistance, and then confirm that resistance up here, right? It was never able to establish support over there, and now it has established support over. It's clearly back in it. So to me, that's why this is a very, very strong zone, or very, very, we'll call it a zone. Very, very strong zone. This bottom bound of the channel, the upper bound of the channel, equally so. It's just the other placement of where this was going to be headed had it not had the earnings interrupt this. So yeah, I'm just very, very glad to see it here. Obviously, common shares and options are all looking much, much better these days. But as I always try to remind you folks, let's keep level heads here. Let's take the opportunities, follow the trend that we're given, and you can't, just because you want it to go any particular way, the market doesn't care. It has no influence in it. But how we sort of track it, decipher it, make decisions based on just what's reality and what's happening, that will work to our benefit for sure. So that's why I'm here and try to share my thoughts and ideas. And if you're watching this, then hopefully you're not just doing it to completely waste your time, but you're getting some nuggets of info that you're trying to then blend with your own thoughts and opinions and what have you. Okay, soapbox, Daniel, chill. Let's flip to the intraday, and I mean, you can let me know if you feel differently in the comments, but I think it's been kind of fun to be tracking this intraday because it gives me also additional sort of play opportunities for SoFi and lets me work more strongly through them. So today we saw this kind of weird mix between that slingshot that we've talked about and that like midday bounce that we've seen in both directions previously. So this is just to say, obviously we started, first of all, that run up in the after hours and in the pre-market was bueno. And then we had this big sell-off, right? But the reason it feels less slingshotty to me is because this sell-off stretched to like past 11:30 in the morning. It was over 2 hours of a sell-off. And so to me, like if it's going to do that slingshot thing, it's going to curtail that at about an hour max, maybe even less than that. And then it's going to take off. But what we saw, and hopefully, some of what we've been looking at was helpful because the same thing that we've seen recently played out. The 180, when the price has been underneath, it's been acting really strongly as intraday resistance. When it's been over it, it's been acting really strongly as intraday support. You see it right here. And so hopefully some folks got didn't get caught when it reclaimed the VWAP here because it still had to break the 180, and so it just lost that, and then very quickly wasn't able to hold the VWAP, and it even did a retest of the VWAP. So it's just hitting in all the right places. It's just making very sort of I don't know if predictable is the right word, but very logical based on the chart aspects and elements that we've been looking at, supply and demand zones, the 180 MA and the VWAP. It's been making really logical movements throughout the day against those things. So this is just me pointing out what those are. I know it's harder to decipher it in real time. Believe me, we talked about that a lot yesterday. But in any case, rejected off the 180, couldn't hold the VWAP, rejected off the VWAP. So this should have registered as like, it might be a little bit more down to come here. And what's the next level down that we have? 1904. Now, we talk about this a lot too. What constitutes something acting as being turned into resistance versus it's just wrestling with that zone? This is just a wrestle. And I know it looks scary when it's 10 cents from the price zone, right? 1904, 9 cents, whatever. That starts to feel like it's kind of moving it away from it. But what really happened there was this was it losing support and flipping to resistance, right? That was the first movement to that. But that's just a wrestling move. That's not this is confirmed resistance. We're looking confirmed resistance and confirmed support are two very different things from just like the movement to support and the movement to resistance. This was a movement to resistance. Now, what happened when it went for the retest? Very quickly came back for the retest. This is a minute candlestick, right? So this is just a few minutes of action. Came back. This was the tightest area here, right? Hit resistance, but then it poked through and then it flipped. So it used the pivot. So the pivot ran both directions. Pivot from resistance, support to resistance, and then came right back about 5 minutes later or so and pivoted from resistance to support, and then it took off. And then the race was against the 180 here again, because this was here, and the VWAP, right? But they're very close at this point, which can be helpful because it's probably less chance that you'll get faked out and you'll take a signal off the 180 or a signal off the VWAP just to get rejected by the other one. So them being in close proximity can be super helpful. And it blew through, tried to reconfirm, lost it, but the 180 was right there to catch it. And so now it's just chopping on the VWAP, right? Taking out probably a bunch of limit buys and sells and stop losses, what have you. And just algo is taking out a bunch of orders. And then flips it to supports and then starts to move away from the VWAP, comes and does like a proximal retest. It doesn't even need to come down and retest. So it bounces here off of just sort of like the area, the zone. But this is what like a stair step up looks like, right? You don't always want to come back down all the way, 100% retracement to retest. You want to be able to do maybe a 70% retracement and retest. This is where like plotting some fib levels could help you if that's sort of in your wheelhouse. But in any case, we get up here to 1965, and then we see peeling off, tried to hold for a few candles at the 180, flipped it to resistance, flipped it back to support. So here it's just wrestling with the 180, right? It doesn't even come down to the VWAP, and just wrestled there with the 180 basically into close. But was making a series of higher lows into close and a series of higher highs into close, and so closed out quite strong. Now, big green candlestick here at the end. I mean, we know that's happened several times throughout several different periods, bullish and bearish, and hasn't necessarily meant anything for the next trading day as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't sort of put a ton of weight on that. But, you know, again, like I said, I know that these things are much harder to call out in real time rather than the retrospective. But even if you had just seen this 1904 when you thought maybe the sell-off was going to be really, really drastic and dramatic, and if you had just sort of been able to hold tight and see what was going to happen at that zone, just give it a few minutes to play out. Is it going to retest and reject? Is it going to fly through it and just start racing down toward the next support level? Like, those are very different movements from what we saw here, right? The retest just didn't even hold the retest of the resistance. And so hopefully these things just help folks kind of catch some of these things in real time and decipher what to look for, what's happening, that sort of thing. But again, 1993 up here, and we came, within almost 30 cents of, less than 30 cents of that. Yeah, less than 30 cents of that today. And so we'll see what happens, but that would be the next level to sort of test, in my opinion. So that's that chart wise, and I'll just plop this here in case folks want to pause it and take a look or screenshot or what have you. But let's take a look at the short data. And here's where we are today. So utilization 28, still cost to borrow is basically nil. Not going to have any impact on if anyone's going to decide to short or not. 7.5%. So a smidge of an increase today, but nothing really drastic or dramatic. So we'll just keep an eye on it for now. And for me, most excited about what the daily chart looks like, the first thing that we covered today, and for all of the reasons that I talked about there. Okay, folks, I gotta run. I appreciate you watching, and I hope that you're able to finish the trading week off strong tomorrow. I will see you in the next video.